pleasure to introduce probably the most exciting event during the Halving party. Some amazing people I'm a huge fan of. It's called the broken dollar. So I guess we'll talk about what is the essence of fiat currency, which is just crap and broken and evil. So I know that some people will be spitting the truth. And the broken dollar, first off, Luke Broyles is going to be hosting this, one of the most kindest, knowledgeable Bitcoin podcaster hosts, who's being mic'd up now. Luke Broyles. Yeah. And next up is the first guy ever to drop napalm in Afghanistan, a former Apache pilot, Apache attack helicopter pilot, Preston Pysh. Awesome. Ooh. All right. And a guy I had the tremendous honor and pleasure of breaking his Wolf of Wall Street cherry that we saw last year in Boston, Larry Lepard.
All right, let's do this.
Let's do it.
Thank you for that intro. I think I speak for all three of us and everyone here that we're all much more passionate about the future and the future of Bitcoin, the future with El Salvador, and the new reserve currency. But we're all Americans. We all come from the land of the capital of fiat. So I suppose we have to talk about that a little bit. So, death of the dollar. Preston, Larry, most people know your story. What are your thoughts with all that's going on right now back in the capital of fiat world?
I would just say that I think things are about to get spicy when you look at the Treasury yield curve and you look at what's happening with oil, commodities at large. It seems like the inflation monster is trying to re-manifest itself. I seen Larry shaking his head. I'm not a big momentum technical person, but it's something that I kind of look at and pay attention to, but don't put a lot of weight in. But like when I'm looking at the bond yield curve and it's like just scooping up like a cup and handle kind of thing, and it looks like it's ready to break through like previous yields, which means it's selling off. I'm looking at that and I'm saying, oh my God, oh dear God, this is about to get wild.
Yeah, I don't think this. Oh, it just turned on. Yeah, I'm with Preston. I mean, we're seeing a lot of signs that it really is a case of game on. And I mean, where do you start, right? So obviously, Bitcoin's back and hit a new all-time high. Now we're just backed off it slightly, and it's not unusual. It takes time sometimes to break through those things, but we will, and with force, and we'll be over 100 soon, quickly. But there are a lot of other signals. As Preston mentioned, the bond market is starting to signal that they've got problems. You're seeing the 10-year at 440. It's going the wrong way quickly. You're seeing cocoa at record prices. You're seeing gold at record prices. You're seeing silver breaking out from a long consolidation. The GCC, the General Commodity Index, just hit an all-time 52-week record high. The fact is the government is badly broken and trapped. And what's happened, I always thought that what was going to drive the next leg of us making a ton of money was the Fed was going to pivot. And what the market's saying is, fuck that. We don't even need the Fed to pivot. We know what's going to happen. Fuck them. And we're going to front run them because markets are always forward looking, right? And so what the market can see is what everybody in this room has known for some time, which is the system is badly broken and there's only one way out if they want to keep the system running, and that is to inflate and debase the currency, and therefore having sound money is the only solution to that problem in terms of protecting yourself. So it's very, very clear to me what's going on right now, and it's actually fun watching the non-sound money people come to grips with this. I've got into a big Twitter war this morning with this guy, Brent Johnson at Santiago Capital. Guy drives me fucking crazy. He's just, he's like too smart by half. So anyway, we're winning and, we're going to keep on winning, and it's going to be really rough for us to win so much, but we'll deal with it, right?
Luke, on this point, I don't know if I'm assuming you saw this chart that Zero Hedge put out within the last 3 days, where they were showing if they do the 3 rate cuts, how much the interest expense was going to be versus not doing the 3 rate cuts. And I mean, the gap is so massive. And for me, it's probably one of the most in-your-face charts I've seen in the last 3 months, 6 months, as to how desperate and how dire the situation is of why they're going to have to cut.
Yeah.
And then, like, what the hell does that do for the price of, like, all these commodities that have, like, some fixed supply attributes? It's just going to blow the prices out to, like, ridiculous levels as they're trying to manage their deficit gap that they've got, which is massive.
Right.
And so they're truly in such a no-win situation, and these numbers are just so big that I was looking at this chart and, like, literally my jaw just dropped and was just like, oh my God, this is so bad.
Yeah, I saw a similar chart this morning, and it's on my Twitter feed. I retweeted it, and it showed the amount of bills that the U.S. is issuing. And one of the things that's happening when countries get in trouble the way we're in trouble in terms of a sovereign debt crisis, and, you know, the difference is, I mean, we've seen this before in a lot of other countries, right? You know, Venezuela and Argentina and Weimar Germany. I mean, other countries have had sovereign debt. We just haven't had one at the reserve currency level. But what happens when you get into one of these things, the countries, they can't sell their long-term bonds because nobody trusts, you know, the value of the money over a longer period of time, which is why the 10-year is going up in yield. And so you start selling bills, and you start selling a lot of bills. Go look at the chart on my Twitter feed that I put out this morning. It shows the amount of bills that we're selling. It's like, it's going straight vertical. And so, you know, Powell is really caught in a bind, and he is going to have to cut rates, or else everything is going to blow up. And I don't know, it's possible that they will wait until everything blows up and use that as an excuse to cut rates. I mean, that's one of the possibilities. We do not know what they are going to do. We can't know. But what the market is telling us is, you know, because markets are very forward looking, the market is saying, we know how this ends, and it's not good for the dollar. It's not a good outcome.
I'm sorry, because I know you probably do have questions prepared, and we're just continuing to talk. On your point with the bills, what I find really, like, when you look at nature and you're saying, okay, so this is how nature operates, and you're looking at what's playing out from a financial standpoint, and you're looking how the U.S. and every other developed nation state is having to issue bills because nobody would be a buyer of anything with duration. Right. What I find fascinating on that point is when you look at all the stablecoin issuers, they don't want to own anything with duration. No. Like, they don't want to touch it. No. And so the fact that they're issuing short duration notes and bills, they're the only type of demand that you can actually find in the free and open market, and I'm using air quotes there, from these stablecoin issuers is for those types of securities that are short duration, because you don't want to have any type of exposure to anything with, like, anything excess of 5 years or 10 years. Like, that's literally suicide. So you have this really interesting dynamic of a match made in heaven for governments that want to issue really short duration paper, and you have stablecoin issuers that only want to buy short duration paper, and everything that's like, if they step into like a 30-year issuance, it's going to be such a bloodbath. Yeah. That I don't even think I mean, I'm sure they're going to have to do it in some form, but it's going to be scoped down so much because it's going to be such a canary in the coal mine if they do it, that, like, everybody's going to be like, oh my God, everything's falling apart. Yeah,
while we're stealing everything from Luke and not letting him ask any questions, I'll build on your point. There's another thing that's going to happen that they gave us a signal of, and I've talked about this in a recent podcast. The ISDA, which is the Derivatives Securities and Derivatives Association, which is really owned by the big banks, wrote a letter to the Federal Reserve saying, look, you need to change the rules so that we have no SLR requirements. And basically what that is, that's QE infinity. So what we know is that the government is going to monetize its debt, and the problem they're having is they're having a hard time finding buyers. As Preston correctly points out, the stablecoin guys are actually one of the biggest buyers. So, and in fact, I mean, as Caitlin will tell you, this whole crypto bill that's working its way through Congress is the BlackRock fucks Tether, bill, because BlackRock has got a big investment in Circle, and they want to see Circle win over Tether, but they want to see them both win because they both buy their bonds. But anyway, back to the ISDA thing for just a moment. What's going to happen there is they will change these rules, and the banks will be able to basically monetize all this debt. And, then at that point in time, and once again, to me, the markets are what are telling us this. And I'm kind of shocked. I actually thought we were going to have a Fed pivot before all this stuff started to work for us. We've not really had a Fed pivot. I mean, we kind of had, we had a soft Fed pivot, and it was in my last quarterly report or 2 quarterly reports ago, where when rates shot up high in September of last year, and I don't know if you recall, but right after that, 13 Fed governors came out and said the hiking cycle's over. Just like bang, 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 bang. And they were just trying to manage expectations. And so the 10-year was at 5+. It immediately dropped back down to 440. And so my view is the 10-year, anything over 5 on the 10-year, and it's game over. They can't. The system collapses, and they know that they're going to have a repo blowout like they had in 2019. I mean, here's another thing that was amazing. In the most recent Powell press conference, he even said he was concerned about one of the reasons why they're tapering QT, which they are doing, right, was because he didn't want to have a situation that looks similar to 2019. Lori Logan, who's one of the Fed governors who understands the plumbing really well, has got to be whispering in his ear, dude, we got to be careful here because we're getting really, really close to the edge, and they are. The fact of the matter is they're getting really close to the edge. So we're, our stuff is working, and they haven't even capitulated yet. Wait until they capitulate, right? I mean, we're going to see $3,000 gold and $150,000 Bitcoin, lickety split, and it's going to be shocking to them and not shocking to us, right? So
29 minutes, and you haven't even asked the question yet.
Yeah, right. Go, Luke.
That's why people love you. You can just go and rant, and we all love it. So, right? Yeah. So I think we all feel that something's going to happen. None of us know what's going to happen. None of us know when it's going to happen. But when it's going to happen, we know there's going to be false narratives. So when one of these things does begin to happen, what do you both suspect are going to be the mainstream narratives that are going to be put out in each potential scenario? And how can everyone in this room and everyone watching online prepare themselves? We all saw this with COVID. We saw a massive amount of information, monetary-wise, that just simply was not true. So what would be your perspectives for people to keep in mind when it comes to this massive amount of monetary misinformation, to ground themselves, to stay the course, and to make through whatever's coming next?
I think you just assume everything they're telling us is a lie. I mean, it's pretty simple, and just do the other thing, do the opposite of what they say, right? I mean, this is not hard.
Yeah, I don't have anything to add.
I love that answer.
Next question.
I think
First one takes 16 minutes. That one took 30 seconds.
Yeah, it averages out. Yeah, it's all great.
The other thing is you could open it up to audience questions too if you want.
Yeah, I think that'd be great. Another question I have for you is I think a lot of people would counter to what you guys are saying, both here on stage and also online, to say, yes, but this time is different because the dollar is the global reserve currency. There is no second best fiat currency in the world. The dollar is the best. America has the largest military. Obviously Preston, could speak to that about how powerful America is on the global stage. And obviously we're here in Latin America where their currencies here are far weaker. So the question is, could all this happen if there's 100 other weaker fiat currencies, or are they all going to fall first to the dollar? Or how does that dynamic work with the dollar to all these other currencies?
This is Brent's thesis. I mean, look, the dollar is the leading currency, but to me, that's not the issue here. The issue, what's the leading asset? This is Saylor's point, right? What is the leading asset? The U.S. Treasury bond used to be the leading secure asset, and it was the basis of all finance. And when they took us down to ZIRP, in 2008, and they almost did ZIRP in 2000, before that, when the dot-com bubble burst. But when they took us to ZIRP, they messed around with that asset. And it was like a crime against capitalism. And so, the issue really isn't what the other fiat currencies are going to do. The issue is what is going to become the new reserve asset. And, the contenders, do not include anything fiat-based, right? I mean, Bitcoin's a contender, gold's a contender, there are other contenders, but oil's a contender. I mean, so my view is I don't really care what the dollar does against all these other, worthless pieces of paper. And I don't think, I think at the smart level in their organization, they don't care either. And so what will get interesting is when what we think happens is going to happens, and inflation is now higher, the bond is selling off hard, they're forced back into yield curve control, the Fed balance sheet is on its way from 7 to 20, inflation's raging at 10 or 15%, Bitcoin's on its way to 250, gold's passing 4,000, gasoline is $10 a gallon. What's the government response in that circumstance? Because that's a circumstance that I could see happening within a two-year window.
I would just, when you look at a yin yang, it has such a perfect kind of geometry to it to kind of explain what I think is playing out right now. And if you were able to take every single country and just kind of line it up from left to right of the strongest currencies in the world to the weakest currencies in the world, and you looked at how much GDP each one of those very weak currencies have as you go across the spectrum to the strongest, and you look at like who's going to figure this out first just through like natural market dynamics, the ones that have the extraordinarily weak currencies are going to be the ones that this is just really obvious to. And as Americans, we're kind of looking at this, and when we talk to our normie friends and family and people like that, it can almost feel like you're banging your head against the wall. But rest assured, if you go to other parts of the world where they're dealing with these just extraordinarily weak currencies, they get it almost immediately. And why it almost might seem like it's not taking hold, or like I feel like I'm in clown world and all those other dynamics and memes that the people that put this conference together do so well, is you're not necessarily seeing that talking point in your face on a day-to-day basis. But if you went and lived in some of these locations and you were dealing with people that were putting up with such debauchery of their local currency, you would find that it's so much easier to orange pill, and it's so much easier to get a person like that to kind of wrap their head around what this is. And I think when we think about that adoption curve, it really, and we say this a lot in podcasts, it's not a linear adoption. It is an accelerative, it is an exponential. And the reason it's an exponential, and the reason when you look at a yin yang, it has that curve to it where it starts to take over, is because we're literally witnessing this happening on a global scale from a global settlement layer standpoint. And so Bitcoin is manifesting itself very strongly in these areas where it's needed most. Unfortunately, for a lot of people in these areas, they might not have a lot of disposable income, so it's difficult for them to be able to allocate to it. But I think as it continues to heat up and we kind of go into the next 5 to 10 years, the exponential part of this is really going to start to take hold, and it's not going to look so linear like it looks right now.
Yeah, that's a very important point, Preston, that we're going to see. We're entering that steep part of the curve in the Malcolm Gladwell adoption curve of a new technology or the developments in the financial system. And I think and we live in a world of instant communication, instant social media. And let's just take a good example of how that happened recently, okay? Silicon Valley Bank in early March was a sound, decent bank with no problems, okay? And every large venture capital firm in California used it, and I was a customer, and there were a gazillion customers. Nobody had any concern. They sold some bonds. They sold them at a deep discount to what they carried them on their balance sheet for. Some financial analyst ran the numbers and said, holy fucking shit, there's a $20 billion hole here. This bank is insolvent. He told his boss was a big venture capitalist. He called his other venture capital friends, and within 1 week, it was gone. It was completely fucking gone. They had $100 billion of deposits. $49 billion of deposits went out in one day. This was a digital bank run, right? I mean, this wasn't George Bailey, at the savings and loan. I mean, this was like a digital bank run. And so, what happened is everyone thought one thing and another thing was true. and you saw the social contagion and how quickly it happened. Okay, now I'm not saying that that's what's going to happen with the dollar. I mean, the dollar, it's a different thing. Okay, it's not Silicon Valley Bank, but it's similar because we are bankrupt. Okay, and more people are becoming aware of it. And another model. I mean, use the avalanche model. Which snowflake is it? Or use the trapped in a theater model, and the smoke starts coming up, and it spreads, and pretty soon the whole goddamn theater is screaming, "Get me the fuck out of here!" And that's the model that I use for what will happen to the dollar. I just don't know the timescale.
And it's super difficult to think the time scale when you're dealing with an exponential. Right. And I think that's the point.
But I do know one thing. I'd much rather be early than late, right? I mean, and everybody in this room is way out on the bleeding edge of early, because we know how the normies in general, all they're sitting around doing is saying, well, gosh, we kind of got an inflation problem. This food shit really is bugging me. It's like, yeah, hello.
Stupid early. Yep. We're so early. Like the people in this room, I mean, you are stupid early. That's how early you are.
Care to elaborate? Care to elaborate? Why? How stupid?
I'll elaborate a little bit. I mean, so let's just look at a big picture numbers for a moment, okay? The total Bitcoin market cap is $1.4 billion today, right? Round numbers, okay. First of all, probably 10 or 15% of that's lost, not really there, so it's less. A lot of that, a million coins are in Satoshi's wallet. He's never going to spend them, so take some more off. 70% of the other coins haven't moved in over a year, so they're held by smart people like everybody in this room. They know that this is a long-term asset to hold. So the balance is the float. Okay, so I don't know, what's the float? Maybe 300 billion, something like that. Okay. There are $300 trillion of fiat-based financial assets in the world, at least. I'm talking cash, stocks, and bonds. There's probably another $400 trillion of real estate. Leave that aside. Okay, there's $12 trillion of gold, and Bitcoin's going to eat all of that. So we're talking about $400 billion of available Bitcoin to satisfy all the 300 trillion who are in the theater with the fire and the smoke coming up, and they're all going to say, "Holy fucking shit! I'm going to die! Get me the fuck out of here now!" Right? And they're going to come chasing stuff that isn't fiat. And they only have three choices, really. They have real estate, they have precious metals of whatever variety, and they have Bitcoin. And of those three, real estate is taxable, you can't move it, it's transaction costs, blah, blah, blah. It's overbought anyway. The metals are fully distributed. We've had 5,000 years to fully distribute the metals. So there's no adoption curve going on there. And Bitcoin is like, Microsoft in 2008, or 1986 or 7. I mean, it's the base layer of money that everybody is going to need, because ultimately dollars won't matter. Everything will be priced in sats. So, look, here's another stat. 54 million millionaires in the world, 21 million Bitcoin. Every millionaire in the world can't even own half a coin. If you're a whole coiner, you're fucking rich. Already. You don't know it yet, but you are really fucking rich. If you're a multi-hole coiner, oh my God, it's going to blow your mind. So, that's how early I think we are.
And it's only, in fiat terms, it's only going to get more absurd. Like right now, it's like, America's adding 10 billion or so a day.
Well, that's right. I mean, and that's part of the problem. We all talk, one of the tough things here is we all talk about it being 1 million a coin or 10 million a coin. And I think both of those numbers are going to happen. The problem is also at that point in time, gasoline might be $100 a gallon.
Yeah.
Well, to your point, you're not even talking about rewiring the entire infrastructure of today. So like all these cap rates of the numbers you were using, which I think it was 100 or 1,000x, those numbers, you're not even accounting for if we were performing proper economic calculation. It's not 100, it might be 500x. Because of all the inefficiency that is wrought with the fiat system. And we're not even talking that. We're just talking, we're taking it at face value that these multiples and these valuations are done through sound logic, which they aren't.
Well, and what's one of the things that's amazing, you see all these prices out in the world, they're all wrong. All the prices are wrong. A $200,000 Bentley, the price is wrong. It doesn't have that much value. A $50 million building, that price, we know that price is now wrong because it's getting sold for $15 million. I mean,
And it's not even close to being realized to what the real value is.
exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. And so what is of value is going to reprice, and what is not of value is going to get wiped out. I mean, Jimmy Rogers, an old-time investor, very old guy now, but has been around quite a long time, said, in this next cycle, farmers are going to end up being rich. I think he's right. I mean, there's one thing we all can't live without, and that's food. And, the price of food's been suppressed for years and years and years. And I think this is next cycle, food is going to be on a relative basis more fairly priced than it is today.
Yeah, and the difference with Bitcoin is that the horrible thing with your statement there is you're basically saying that you think there's a high probability food is scarce. And the beauty of Bitcoin is that it can be infinitely finite, and the value, when the price of food goes up, people suffer. But when the price of Bitcoin goes up, nobody suffers, right? So, or besides the people shorting it. So, so my last question for you, then I'd like to throw it out to the audience in just a moment. But my last question for you is that as the dollar breaks, as they become more desperate, there's a lot of theories and rumors and ideas about potentially governments copying some form of Saylor strategy, right? 5 years ago, Michael Saylor was not in Bitcoin at all. Obviously, we have both in America, we had the presidential candidates Vivek as well as Kennedy that were pro-Bitcoin, or at least open to Bitcoin to some degree. Obviously, Kennedy threw out the proposition of, to some degree backing treasuries of Bitcoin or whatever. Do you guys think that as the dollar breaks and continues to degrade, that whether it's the US or elsewhere in the world, they try to attempt to begin to back their made-up political money with Bitcoin to some degree? And what does that do both to that currency as well as to Bitcoin?
Who's Michael Saylor? So on this point, I would talk to it more from, I don't know what any individual country is going to do, but I would talk through the incentives of it. And I think that there's going to be a lot of nation states that just spend at will. And the reason they spend at will is because they've been incentivized to play a game where they are rewarded to cheat. And when I say they're cheating, they're just debasing the money. And if you're not debasing the money and you would decide to go back on a gold standard, let's just say the US decided, you know what, we're done cheating, we're going to go back on a gold standard, we're going to play this, ethically and morally, they would get wrecked on the global stage. Absolutely decimated. And so would any other country that would decide to do that today. And so they're faced with this really interesting quandary where they need to cheat, but they need to also be playing by the rules and not telling anybody. And this goes for any country. So like if you're doing treasury issuance and just put out another bond tranche of $1 billion, and I know it's way more than that, but let's just say it's $1 billion and you issue that, and you're not backing it with something hard like Bitcoin, I think today you'd need about 1% backing in order for that value to continue to hold the $1 billion mark. If you're not doing that in the background in some type of secret or compartmentalized kind of way, and then not telling the market but acting like you aren't doing that, I think you're going to get your face ripped off in the long term play of all of this as you look at it from a nation state lens. Because what's going to play out is, call it 4 years, 6 years, 10 years, I don't know, just like Larry, I don't know. But eventually they're going to come to this realization collectively as a nation state and the people that hold the purse strings of that nation state, and they're going to say, oh my God, we can't afford anything. Because this worthless paper that we continue to issue is truly worthless. And what they're going to have to do in that moment, if they haven't been backing it secretly, is they're going to have to raid the treasury of something that they can do a pen stroke to, and they're going to get compliance because they have a bunch of worker bees that don't want to go to jail. And so what am I talking about in that comment? I'm talking about an ETF, because there's going to be just enormous amounts of buying power stuffed into an ETF for a nation state to say, oh, look over here. We can raid this. We can do it in a way where we have some pogue employee that's going to say, yes, sir, because they got a court order that says that they're going to go to jail if they don't raid this treasury. And so that's really easy for us to basically capture the private keys of those coins sitting over there in this massive treasury. So I think that's the direction that if you're a key leader in a nation state and you're not thinking about this in those types of terms, you're either going to get wrecked and turn the entire populace against you because you're basically going to steal from them, because that's going to be your only option to continue to fund the debauchery that exists inside your country's spending, which has been incentivized to spend like crazy. And the populace is actually re-electing you because you're spending like crazy, because you're breaking the rules, which they're incentivized to do today. But you're going to have this really interesting moment in time, and I don't know where that moment in time is, but it's going to flip. And all those elected officials they're going to be like, holy shit. Like, we need real money, and we need it right now, or this entire thing falls apart. And we're going to have to make this drastic decision to literally steal from all these citizens that have these paper deposits in ETFs or whatever it is. And if we don't, this is going to get very, what's the word I'm looking for? Messy, ugly, social unrest, you name it, in a very quick fashion. So I guess my recommendation, if you're a world leader, which, I don't suspect we have world leaders. We have memers in here, the people that are actually changing the world. Yes. But if we did and we had somebody listen, hopefully this is not online because I had a couple of drinks before I came up here. But if they are listening online, that's my recommendation to you. My recommendation is you need to set up some type of backing to the fixed income that you're issuing. And it doesn't need to be a lot, at least it doesn't today. $500,000 USD per Bitcoin, you probably need about 10%. But boy, it's about to get interesting if you're not doing something like that.
Yeah, it's very hard to know how it's going to all go. An interesting thought experiment, if you guys haven't read it, it's dark, but it gives you clues to one of the possible outcomes, is to read The Mandibles, which is by Lionel Shriver, which is a very interesting book. I don't know what they're going to do. I think we're moving to a decentralized world. I think we reached peak centralization in World War II. We figured out how to kill 50 million people really quickly. I think most people don't like killing other people, and I think big governments, because they can be taken over by madmen like Hitler and others, tend to kill a lot of people. And so my suspicion is that the beautiful thing that's going to come out of this monetary collapse is that we're going to have much smaller, flatter governments. And, we're going to realize we don't need all this shit. I don't need Elizabeth Warren telling me what the fuck to do. I don't need a retirement from the fucking government. I need them to leave me the fuck alone. I don't want them taking 50% of my money in taxes. I don't want them debasing my currency. I don't want them telling them what I got to fucking inject in my arm. Every single part of fucking government is evil. It's just fucking definitely evil. And, and that's why this Bitcoin shit, it's just so God-given. It's just so fucking beautiful the way we're going to destroy them. It's just, all we got to do is just sit back and watch it happen. It's like, and that's why I'm into fitness, because I just want to be here to see it happen, man. If it takes 30 fucking years, I'll be 60. What'll I be? I'll be 99 years old in 30 years, okay? I'm going to fucking be here. I want to see it.
I'm hitting the bar. He's hitting the half marathon.
This is definitely a very beautiful place to sit and watch and wait. So, actually, real quick, I have one more question. For both of you, this is your first time in El Salvador, right? Yeah? What do you think?
Love it. Great country, great people. Kind of a small subset right here. I'm in a resort. Yeah. But the people at the airport were fabulous, and it seems like a wonderful place. And I'm really impressed by all the people who are moving here. I met some guys who are moving here and they're in Berlin. I guess they've got a circular Bitcoin economy going in Berlin. All kinds of stuff happening. Very, very good stuff. I think Max and Stacy have embraced it. I hear El Zante is beautiful. I haven't been there yet, but it's fabulous. This is the first of what I think will be many, many nation states that will go in this direction, and smartly so, right?
I'm extremely bullish. There was a person that came up to, I think it was Nico, that told me this yesterday at the beach yesterday when Max and Stacy were talking. He came up to me and he said that he was out on the local economy and he was trying to buy something. And he only had $2 US and a 10. And he went out and he was trying to buy some fruit. And the woman that he was trying to buy the fruit from, he's like, do you take Bitcoin? She's like, no. And he's like, and he literally showed her what he had in the wallet. And he knew that the price was basically in between the 2 and the 10. And let's just say it was 4, but I don't know what it was. And when he showed the woman the amount that he had, and he said, just take the 10. And he tried to give her the 10. The woman absolutely refused and just would not take it. She's like, just give me the 2. And what I think that this speaks to on such a profound level is how this country is primed for future excellence and for the culture that is deeply rooted into this country, is this idea that I want to give more than I take. And I talk about this parasitic mindset kind of plaguing developed nation states in today's world. And I think many of us are very accustomed to this, because you go back to the United States. What would the person say to you in one of these developed nation states if the price was $4 and you presented them with $2 or $10? The person would look at you and say, I'm taking your $10 and get the hell out of my face. And it speaks to this idea, and obviously I'm talking from a very broad net basis. Not everybody would be like this, but on a net basis, I think you would see this idea of like, give me everything you got. I'm struggling to make ends meet. And I just have no time for this, you give me $2 and the price is 4. This country is deeply primed for future excellence because of how it's culturally set up and for the pain that it's experienced. And I think the fact that you have a president that has embraced Bitcoin is going to usher in so much prosperity for this country. And I'm just very excited for the citizens of this country and any other country that's like this one moving forward, because it's getting ready to spin the other way when it swings to another pole. And boy, oh boy, get ready, because these people here are going to benefit from all of that very tremendously.
Great. I think we've got time for maybe 1 or 2 very short questions. Yeah, right.
Yeah. Hold on 1 second. We'll get you a microphone right here. Get your microphone.
Where does the CBDC fall into all of this?
Yeah, it's probably something they're going to attempt. I mean, they want to control us. They're evil. And, they're going to try and shove it down our throats. I mean, it's very much like in COVID, they wanted to send out stimmy checks, and they're going to try and bribe us. I mean, we all know what their plan is, right? It's very clear. But we're messing up their plan. The thing that's so beautiful about this, and Preston and I talk about this personally a lot, is it's so fucking great to watch these people lose. It's just so much fun. I mean, it's incredibly satisfying to watch them like struggle, you know what I mean? And to just try different attacks and stuff. And you're just like, is that all you guys got? I mean, give me a fucking break, My kids could do better than that.
On the face of it, the CBDC could be concerning for people that don't understand how it is tethered to the legacy system. So when you understand how the CBDC is going to have to continue to expand the number of units, the monetary units that it's tethered to, you quickly understand how it has to fail. So they're going to potentially try all these different tactics, like you can only spend it here, you can only do this with it. And what it's doing is it's truly incentivizing somebody to go somewhere else But more deeply, they're going to have to offset all the debauchery of the impairment that's happening through this credit-based fractional reserve system that has to keep expanding the number of monetary units. And that's why it's going to fail, is because they have to keep that thing just growing at a clip that is going to melt people's brains. And because it's tethered to that is why nobody's going to want to use it. And they're going to hand it out to a bunch of people that don't create real economic value to society. And those people are going to try to spend those units. But the people that are actually creating value are going to look at that and say, I'm not accepting that. And that's why it's going to fail in the long run. So it looks like a threat. It looks a little scary, especially when you know the government's behind it. But I think everybody can just rest assured and realize that it's not something to really kind of spend too much time being concerned with in the face of Bitcoin, which is immutable.
The CBDC has a lot of control, but it only has control within that system, not within the Bitcoin system. Right. Yeah, I think we got time for another question.
We got one more right here with the microphone.
I like the shirt.
Thanks, man. We're all Satoshi. I'm from Venezuela. And, obviously people know what happened with the currency there. And I love what you guys talked about the fact that there's only an exit to either real estate or Bitcoin. And my question really is about, we've all got our sats. That's great. But I got friends and family that just, they haven't gotten it yet. And my concern is capital controls. That's what happened in Venezuela. My fear is capital controls come to the States, and we talk about all this money and these trillions of dollars that are going to exit the system and go into Bitcoin. But what if they shut down the ability for them to exit these trillions of dollars into Bitcoin? And even if they close those gaps and allow you to only buy $1,000 a week, like how are these people going to move weight?
Well, that's a big risk. It's a legitimate risk, and I've often thought that when it gets really existential for them, they're going to tax Bitcoin at 90%. Or, Elizabeth Warren wants us to report our addresses, right, and how many coins we have. So, my view is there are going to be a whole lot of voting accidents, and and this is why you don't want to hold an ETF. I'm glad there are people who are buying them because it adds to demand, but to me that's like the gateway drug, and then you get them on the real heroin, which is get your own fucking keys. Because and having your own keys is really going to count, because if we do get into the mandible situation that they're coming after us because we're winning, you're going to be able to say fuck you. I don't have any coins. Where are they? Good luck getting them. An army. They can kill you, but that's about it. An army cannot take your wealth away from you. That's how powerful this is. Jason Lowry, came up with this. Think about it. For all of mankind's history, it was all about it was all about physical power controlling wealth. Why do you think we went to war in the Middle East? To get control of that oil, right? That was wealth. We wanted it. So, we got tanks, we got bombs, we got guns. Let's go get it, right? You can't get my keys. You can kill me, but other than that, you can, and you still won't have my keys. So that's a huge paradigm shift, and that's why they're fucked. They're going to lose. But your point is a good one, which is we've got to get more people into being self-custodied ASAP. And there's an argument that's been made that they let this whole ETF thing happen because they knew that Bitcoin was winning, and so they want to have it in shit they can see and control. They can tax it, they can see. It would be easy, right? They do a 6102. Hey, everybody who's got an ETF, great, we'll give you the dollars tomorrow. You don't own that Bitcoin anymore. By the way, Bitcoin's now taxed at 95%. Yeah. Okay. If you're American, you got to report your Bitcoin or suffer the fate of a $100,000 fine or 10 years in jail. Well, guess what? I'm going to learn Italian.
And on that note, please give it up for these gentlemen, legends of the space, Luke Broyles, Preston Pysh, and Larry Lepard.